Okay, let's see then. As I told you before, we are going to check adverbial clauses today. We are going to give a definition of what an adverbial clause is. And it is a group of words that functions as an adverb and that contains a subject and a verb. You have to take in count that these two elements are going to be very important in the definition of an adverbial clause. We have to identify the subject and the verb. Another word that we have to take in count is a conjunction. These three elements form, in this example, the adverbial clause. When the sun rises, we will escape. As you can see, the subject of the adverbial clause is the sun and the verb rises. As we say before, okay, we have simple adverbs and we are going to identify the adverbial clauses. But try to remember what an adverb is. An adverb is a word that modifies a verb, another adverb, an adjective. This word, the adverb, it's going to give us more information about the verb in this case. As you can see in these examples, he walks quickly. Tom ran yesterday. Sally lives there. In the three examples that we have first, we can identify only a word that modifies the verbs. Quickly, yesterday, there. They have the function of adverb. What is going to be the difference with adverbial clauses? As we saw in the previous slide, an adverbial clause is going to have a subject and a verb. Then we have, for this kind of clauses, these examples. He walks like he is late. Tony ran when the rain started. Sally lives where I was born. He won because he trains constantly. As you can see in this second round of examples, we have he in the first example for the subject and is, that is the verb. In the second, the rain is the subject and started the verb. In the third one, I and the verb was born. Finally, we have he, a subject, and trains, the verb. I told you that we need to identify the subject and the verb in an adverbial clause. But we have another element that compounds the adverbial clause that is called conjunction. If you check before the subject in each of the examples of the adverbial clauses, we have the words like, when, where, because. They are going to be another important element to identify an adverbial clause. These kind of words like, when, where, because are called subordinating conjunction because they are going to be subordinate to the first part of the sentence. And we can identify that each of these subordinating conjunctions have a different function, that they are related with the words how, when, where, why. They are going to tell us this information about the verb. Let's see. A subordinating conjunction joins a subordinated clause to a main clause. Some common conjunctions are after, although, if, since, until, because. And we have lots of more of these conjunctions. As I told you before, the subordinating conjunction joins the first clause with the second one. We are going to call to the first clause the main clause. It means that it has a meaning itself. If we omit the second part of this full sentence, we can see that the first clause have meaning itself. We will lay here. It doesn't need any more information because the action is going to be clear. But the second one, that is called subordinated clause, it depends on the first sentence. If the first sentence doesn't exist, the second one doesn't have a support to exist until the rain stops. Okay, until the rain stops, what happened? Then in a sentence, we can have two parts of it, a main clause and a subordinating clause. Another name to call these kind of sentences are independent clause and dependent clause. When we write an adverbial phrase, an adverbial clause, okay, we need to take in count that we are going to use a comma if the adverbial clause is at the beginning. But if it is at the end, it is not necessary to use a comma. We are going to write it as a whole clause. Let's check these examples. Stop running is an independent clause. Stop running when you hear the whistle. But we can change the position of these two clauses, and in that case, we are going to write, when you hear the whistle, comma, stop run. This is very, very important. If we know, or if we are going to write the adverbial clause at the beginning, we need to use a comma before to the independent clause. A second example, the spell will last until the clock strikes midnight. We change the position of the adverbial clause to the beginning until the clock strikes midnight, comma, the spell will last. And we need to take in count that we have adverbial phrase that is going to be different from an adverbial clause. As we saw in this explanation, an adverbial clause has a subject and a verb. An adverbial phrase, no. Check this example. The spell will last until midnight. Okay, we have a subordinated conjunction, but we don't have any subject or any verb. We have another word, until midnight. And if we put in practice the structure that we saw in the previous examples, and we write or say the adverbial phrase at the beginning, we are going to use comma. until midnight, comma, the spell will last. Then be careful because we have adverbial clauses and adverbial phrases. To recap this brief explanation of adverbial clauses. An adverbial clause is a group of words that functions as an adverb, and it contains a subject and a verb. Another element for these adverbial clauses are the subordinating conjunctions. If we want to write the adverbial clause at the beginning of our sentence, we need to use a comma before the independent clause. Thank you so much for watching this presentation. Do you have any question or comment? No comments, no questions.
No questions, teacher.
Acerca de los trabajos que llevamos en plataforma, ¿algún comentario, alguna pregunta, aclaración, duda? ¿No? ¿Vamos bien? Nuevamente recordarles, por favor, que traten de subirlos a tiempo. Ya les mandé por ahí en el WhatsApp, en los grupos de WhatsApp, un nuevo calendario. Bueno, no un nuevo calendario, sino un calendario que contiene la deadline, ¿sí? La fecha límite de entrega. Y recuerden, es una petición que les hago, que lo manden a tiempo para que al final no tengamos el problema de las calificaciones cuando tengan que realizar ya su reinscripción. ¿Sí? Agradecerles como siempre su tiempo, su presencia y su interés por la clase.